Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about an empire often romanticized in the pages of history books, a sprawling, magnificent power that shaped much of the known world, the Ottoman Empire. Forget the glittering palaces and the heroic tales. Tonight, we're diving into the raw, unvarnished reality of everyday life for the common person, a reality so starkly different from your cozy existence that you'd barely last a single day. It was a world of breathtaking innovation and brutal survival, of immense wealth and grinding poverty, often existing side by side. So, if you're ready to peel back the layers of time and truly experience what it meant to live in an age without antibiotics, sanitation, or basic human rights as we know them, then hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blanket a little tighter, and let's begin this journey. You stir, not to the gentle chime of a digital alarm, but to the jarring cacophony of an Ottoman street at first light. The air, heavy and thick, is the first thing that assaults you. It's a pungent cocktail of wood smoke, animal dung, stale sweat, and something else, a faint yet persistent odor of human waste that permeates everything. Your eyes, gritty from a night spent on a hard, straw-filled mattress or perhaps a simple mat on the floor, flutter open, struggling to adjust to the dimness that even the rising sun struggles to penetrate in the tightly packed urban dwellings. There's no soft pillow, no springy mattress beneath you, just the unyielding earth or a rough-hewn wooden platform covered with whatever fabric your family could afford. Your back aches, your limbs feel stiff, and every joint protests as you attempt to sit up. You're not in your private bedroom, a sanctuary of personal space. No, you're likely in a single crowded room, sharing your sleeping space with your entire family, parents, siblings, maybe even grandparents or distant relatives. The sounds of their restless sleep, their coughs and snores have been your lullaby, and now form part of your unwelcome awakening. The intimacy is suffocating, a constant reminder that privacy, as you understand it, is a luxury reserved for the truly powerful, not for the likes of you. You push yourself up, your bare feet meeting the cold, packed earth floor. There's no carpet, no polished wood, just the gritty, uneven ground that dust clings to like a second skin. The first order of business, even before the sun truly crests the horizon, is the call of nature. And here's where your modern sensibilities truly crash and burn. There's no gleaming porcelain toilet, no flush of water to whisk away the unpleasantness. Instead, you'd likely make your way to a communal latrine, a hole in the ground often shared by multiple households, or worse, to a designated corner of a yard, or even just an alleyway. The stench, even at this early hour, is overpowering, a miasma of decay that makes your stomach churn. You quickly perform your necessary function, acutely aware of the flies that buzz around, landing on exposed skin, carrying invisible threats. Hygiene, as you know it, is a concept from a distant future. There's no running water in your home, no warm shower awaiting you. A small basin of water, probably collected yesterday from a public fountain or well and left overnight, is your only option for washing. The water is cold, often cloudy, and far from sterile. You splash a meager amount on your face, feeling the chill seep into your bones. A rough cloth or your bare hands suffice for cleaning. Soap, if you're lucky enough to possess some, is a luxury, a crude mixture of ash and animal fat that does little more than leave a slippery residue. Forget about toothpaste and toothbrushes. Your teeth are cleaned, if at all, with a chew stick from a particular tree, or perhaps just to rinse with that same questionable water. The thought of the bacteria teeming in your mouth, the early signs of decay that would lead to agonizing pain and eventual tooth loss, sends a shiver down your spine. Your clothes, likely worn for days, if not weeks, are simple and practical. A tunic or dress of rough wool or linen, perhaps a pair of trousers beneath. There's no vast wardrobe, no choosing an outfit based on mood or occasion. You wear what you have until it's threadbare, patched, and repatched until it can no longer hold itself together. The fabric scratches your skin, a constant low-level irritation. You can feel the accumulated dust and grime, the faint smell of your own body that you can't quite wash away. Don't even think about deodorant. The concept is alien. You simply exist in your own natural scent, alongside the scents of everyone and everything else. As you step outside your dwelling, the true assault on your senses begins. The narrow, winding streets are already bustling, even before the sun is fully up. Donkeys laden with goods jostle for space with porters carrying immense burdens on their backs. Shouts and calls echo from merchants setting up their stalls, their voices a guttural chorus in a language you don't understand. The ground beneath your feet is not paved smoothly, but a treacherous mix of cobblestones, compacted earth, and the unavoidable refuse of daily life. Animal droppings are everywhere, mixed with discarded food scraps, bits of straw, and the unidentifiable detritus of a densely populated pre-industrial city. You have to watch your step constantly, lest you slip or tread on something truly foul. The air, which was already heavy inside, thickens with new smells. The sharp tang of baking bread mixes with the cloying sweetness of rotting fruit, the metallic scent of a nearby blacksmith's forge, and the ever-present undertone of human and animal waste. Smoke from countless cooking fires stings your eyes, making them water. The overall impression is one of overwhelming sensory input, a relentless barrage that your modern, sanitized brain struggles to process. Your ears pick up the distinct sound of flies, a constant, irritating hum that seems to follow you everywhere, their presence a stark reminder of the filth that surrounds you and the diseases they carry. You pass by other dwellings, their walls often crumbling, their doorways open to reveal similar scenes of crowded families and sparse belongings. The faces you see are weathered, often etched with hardship and exhaustion, even on the young. Children, barely old enough to walk, already seem to carry the weight of their precarious existence in their eyes. There are no smooth, clear complexions. Skin is often pockmarked, scarred by past illnesses like smallpox, or discolored by malnutrition. Teeth are often missing or discolored, smiles revealing gaps and decay. This is the reality of widespread disease, a constant, invisible threat that stalks every corner of life. The concept of personal space is almost non-existent. You are constantly brushing past people, bumping into them, being jostled and pushed. Hands reach out, eyes meet yours with a mixture of suspicion, indifference, or the desperate plea of a beggar. There's a constant tension, an underlying awareness of potential danger in this crowded, anonymous mass of humanity. You clutch your meager possessions close, wary of pickpockets or those more desperate than yourself. The streets are a marketplace, a workplace, a social gathering point, and a toilet all rolled into one, a chaotic tapestry of life that demands constant vigilance and a hardened spirit. Your comfortable, climate-controlled home, your easy access to clean water and sanitation, your fresh clothes and personal hygiene products, all of it vanishes in this waking nightmare. You are a creature of a different age, a soft, pampered product of progress, ill-equipped for the raw, visceral reality of the Ottoman dawn. The sheer physical discomfort, the overwhelming smells, the constant awareness of disease, and the utter lack of privacy would be enough to break you before you've even had your first meal. And this, my friend, is just the very beginning of your day. You haven't even encountered the true struggles yet. The morning grinds on, and the gnawing emptiness in your stomach becomes a more insistent companion than the noise of the street. Food. A simple concept, a basic necessity, yet for you, transported from an age of abundant, readily available sustenance, the Ottoman approach to a meal would be a shocking revelation. You're not reaching for a cereal box or brewing a fresh pot of coffee. You're bracing yourself for a struggle, a negotiation, a potential disappointment. Breakfast, if it can even be called that, is typically meager. If your family is fortunate, there might be a piece of coarse bread, perhaps a handful of olives, or some dried fruit. Meat is a rarity, a luxury reserved for special occasions or the very wealthy. Dairy products are less common than you might expect, often going rancid quickly in the oppressive heat. The bread itself is nothing like the soft, artisanal loaves you might pick up from a modern bakery. This is often a dense, heavy flatbread, made from whatever grain is available, sometimes mixed with cheaper flours or even crushed legumes to stretch it further. It's tough on the teeth, and its texture speaks of the relentless labor that went into its production, from sowing to grinding. You chew slowly, trying to savor every crumb, for you know not when your next bite will come. Water. Oh, the quest for safe drinking water. In your world, you turn a tap, and crystal clear, treated water flows endlessly. Here it's a constant gamble. Public fountains, known as cheshmeh, are the primary source, fed by complex systems of aqueducts. While these are engineering marvels for their time, the water itself is far from purified. It passes through open channels, gathering dust, debris, and whatever else might fall or be thrown into it. Animals drink from it, children play in it, and sometimes less savory individuals might even relieve themselves near its source. You fill your jug, keenly aware that every sip carries a risk. Waterborne diseases are rampant, a constant threat to life. Dysentery, cholera, typhoid, these aren't exotic illnesses in medical textbooks. They are everyday realities that could strike you or your loved ones down at any moment. The dull ache in your stomach after drinking a mouthful of public water is not just hunger, it's a quiet dread. The market, or charsha, is where the bulk of food is acquired. As you venture further into its labyrinthine alleys, the sensory assault intensifies. The air is thick with the scent of spices, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, mingling with the sharp tang of curing meats, the earthy smell of fresh produce, and the overpowering aroma of unwashed bodies. You navigate a chaotic scene of vendors shouting their wares, haggling customers, and the ubiquitous presence of flies. These flies, relentless and numerous, land on everything. The uncovered trays of meat, the piles of dried figs, the glistening mounds of honey. They are a visible, buzzing emblem of the unsanitary conditions. You watch them crawl over food, carrying invisible pathogens from the filth of the street to what you are about to consume, and a wave of nausea washes over you. Food preservation techniques are rudimentary by your standards. Salting, drying, and fermentation are the main methods. Fresh produce is highly seasonal, meaning your diet would largely depend on what was currently being harvested. In lean times or during a harsh winter, variety would be minimal, and hunger would be a constant, sharp companion. You see rows of dried fish looking tough and unappetizing. Stacks of onions and garlic, crucial for flavoring, and their perceived medicinal properties, are abundant. Piles of lentils and chickpeas, the backbone of many meals, are weighed out with practiced ease by vendors. Cooking at home is a laborious process. There's no gas stove or microwave. You're likely cooking over an open fire or a small charcoal brazier, fanning the flames, constantly monitoring the heat. Fuel, whether wood or charcoal, is a precious commodity, often requiring a portion of your already limited income or hours of gathering. Smoke fills your cramped dwelling, stinging your eyes and coating your lungs with soot. Meals are simple, often a single pot stew or a soup, designed to feed many mouths with as little expense and effort as possible. Vegetables, legumes, and grain form the bulk of the diet. Meat, as mentioned, is rare, a source of protein desperately craved but seldom obtained. Consider the act of eating itself. There are no individual plates, no cutlery as you know it. Food is often served on large communal platters, and you eat with your right hand, scooping up morsels of bread and stew. The etiquette is strict. Always use your right hand, don't double dip, and try not to spill. The lack of personal utensils means any illness one person carries can easily be passed around the family table. It's an intimate act, but one fraught with unseen dangers. Portion sizes are another stark contrast. You're used to feeling full, even overfull after a meal. Here, every meal is a delicate balance between satisfying immediate hunger and preserving enough food for the future. Scarcity is not an abstract concept. It is the ever-present shadow over every plate. You learn to eat quickly to ensure you get your share, but also to stop before you feel truly satiated, knowing that true fullness is a luxury. Malnutrition, in various subtle forms, would likely be a constant drain on your energy and health, making you susceptible to countless diseases. The concept of a balanced diet of vitamins and minerals is entirely unknown. Your body, accustomed to a rich and varied intake, would quickly begin to suffer. Deficiencies would manifest in dull skin, brittle hair, general weakness, and a compromised immune system. You might find yourself constantly fatigued, your mind less sharp, your body less resilient. The sheer lack of consistent, nutrient-dense food would be a daily grind, chipping away at your vitality, making you feel perpetually hungry and weak. And then there's the unpredictability. A bad harvest, a siege, a sudden tax increase, or a disruption in trade routes could mean widespread famine. You're not just dealing with personal scarcity. You're living in an empire where the delicate balance of food supply is constantly at risk. The fear of hunger is a deep, primal fear, one that you've never truly experienced in your world of supermarkets and food banks. It's a fear that would permeate every decision, every interaction, and every waking moment. The food you finally eat, simple and often contaminated, is not just sustenance. It's a victory, however small, in the ongoing battle against starvation and disease. Your day in the Ottoman Empire has just acquired another layer of visceral, terrifying reality as the morning progresses. Perhaps you venture further into the city, or perhaps you remain within the confines of your immediate neighborhood. But either way, the invisible hand of power reaches into every corner of your existence. You, a product of a world where justice is ideally impartial, where rights are codified, and where due process is an expectation, would find the Ottoman system of law enforcement and punishment a terrifying, arbitrary force. You live beneath the Sultan's shadow, and his will, or the will of his appointed officials, is absolute. Forget about your Miranda rights, your right to an attorney, or the presumption of innocence. These are fantastical notions here. Justice is swift, often public, and frequently brutal. You walk through the streets, and you are constantly aware of the presence of the Subasha, police chief, or the Qadr, judge, or their deputies. Their authority is immediate and unquestionable. A single accusation, even from someone with a grudge, could lead to your immediate arrest. There's no appeal to a higher court in the way you understand it. No long, drawn-out legal battle. If you're accused of theft, for example, the evidence might be flimsy based on hearsay or circumstantial events. But the outcome could be devastating. Imagine seeing it firsthand. A man accused of stealing a loaf of bread has his hand severed in the public square. Not a clean cut, mind you, but a crude, agonizing act performed by an executioner with a heavy blade. The screams of the condemned, the spurting blood, the subsequent cauterization with a hot iron, and the final, agonizing collapse of the man are all played out for the public to witness. This isn't just punishment. It's a spectacle, a chilling deterrent designed to instill fear and enforce obedience. You feel the bile rise in your throat, your stomach clenching, but you dare not look away, for to do so might be seen as disrespect, and disrespect could attract unwanted attention. The sight burns itself into your memory, a constant reminder of the fragility of your body and your life under this regime. Punishments vary depending on the severity of the crime, and sometimes on the status of the accused. Whipping is common for minor infractions. For blasphemy or perceived insults to Islam, the penalty could be crucifixion or stoning. For treason, which could be anything from plotting against the Sultan to even a careless word spoken in public, The penalty is almost always death, often by strangulation or decapitation. These aren't private affairs. They are public demonstrations of state power. You would learn very quickly to keep your thoughts to yourself, to lower your gaze, and to move through the world with an outward air of absolute conformity. The fear of making a wrong move, of attracting the wrong kind of attention, would be a constant, low-level hum in your consciousness. And it's not just the judicial system that threatens you. The very structure of society built around the sultan's absolute authority leaves you incredibly vulnerable. There's no freedom of speech, no right to protest, no organized labor unions to protect your interests. If you work for a powerful official or a wealthy merchant, you are essentially their property and their whim dictates your fate. They could dismiss you without cause, have you beaten for perceived insubordination, or even falsely accuse you of a crime to get rid of you. Who would you appeal to? The Kadu is often influenced by wealth and power, and your voice, as a common person, carries little weight against a man of influence. Consider the Janissaries, the elite infantry units of the Ottoman army. These men, taken from Christian families as boys through the infamous devshirme system, are fiercely loyal to the Sultan and are a powerful, often feared presence in the cities. While they are a formidable fighting force, their presence also represents another layer of arbitrary power. A janissary could demand deference, could commandeer goods, or could even inflict violence with little consequence, especially if you were a non-Muslim. Their parades through the streets, their proud, disciplined bearing, would be a spectacle of power that simultaneously inspires awe and profound unease. You learn to step aside, to offer them unquestioning respect, and to avoid any interaction that might provoke their ire. Prisons, if you were unfortunate enough to end up in one, are not places of rehabilitation. They are dark, cramped, disease-ridden holes in the ground, often teeming with rats, vermin, and the dying. Food and water are scarce, sanitation is non-existent, and torture is a common tool for extracting confessions. The sounds of suffering would echo through the walls, a constant reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the utter lack of compassion. Your modern mind, accustomed to humane treatment even for criminals, would recoil in horror. The thought of spending even a single night in such a place would fill you with a paralyzing dread, making you doubly cautious about every action, every word. The lack of legal recourse for the common person, the stark reality that your life could be utterly upended by a powerful individual or a misapplied law, would force a complete re-evaluation of your understanding of personal liberty. You would live with a constant simmering fear, not just of physical danger from criminals, but from the very system designed to maintain order. Every public pronouncement, every decree posted in the marketplace would carry an implicit threat. You learn to be invisible, keep your head down, to not draw attention to yourself. Your individuality, your modern sense of self-worth and autonomy would be stripped away, replaced by the grim imperative of survival under a vast, unyielding and often brutal imperial hand. Your day, barely begun, has already revealed the terrifying fragility of existence in this formidable empire. The mid-morning sun beats down now, beginning to warm the narrow alleys and open squares, but there's no relief. Only a shift in the intensity of the day's demands. Your existence in the Ottoman Empire isn't just about avoiding disease and injustice. It's about constant grinding labor. Forget about your air-conditioned offices, your ergonomic chairs, your 8-hour workdays, or the concept of a weekend. You are a cog in a vast pre-industrial machine, and your body is your primary tool. If you are a man, your day is likely dominated by physical exertion. Perhaps you are a porter, a hummel, carrying immense loads on your back through the crowded streets. Imagine strapping a burden weighing perhaps 100–200 pounds, sacks of grain, bales of cloth, heavy ceramic pots, onto a specially designed frame on your back. Your spine would protest, Your muscles would scream with every step, and the constant friction of the straps would chafe your skin raw. You would navigate the uneven cobblestones, dodging donkeys and other pedestrians, your breath coming in ragged gasps. Your hands would be calloused, your shoulders perpetually hunched, and your feet, likely in simple, worn leather shoes or even bare, would be a mass of aches and pains. This isn't a workout. It's a relentless daily grind that slowly, surely, breaks down your body. Perhaps you are a craftsman, a tanner, working in a communal tannery on the outskirts of the city. The stench alone would be enough to make you gag. Animal hides, soaking in vats of foul-smelling chemicals, lime, and often human and animal urine, create a nauseating miasma that clings to your clothes and skin. You would spend your days knee-deep in this caustic mixture, scraping hair from hides with sharp tools, pounding them with mallets, and stretching them. Your hands would be permanently stained, your skin cracked and irritated, and the fumes would constantly irritate your lungs and eyes. The work is physically demanding, repetitive, and dangerous, with constant exposure to harmful substances and the risk of cuts and infections. If you're a blacksmith, the heat of the forge would be relentless. You'd spend your hours swinging heavy hammers, shaping red-hot metal with precision and strength. Sparks would fly, occasionally burning your skin, and the ringing of metal on metal would gradually deafen you. Your muscles would ripple with strength, but your body would be constantly fatigued, your clothes soaked with sweat, and your face perpetually smudged with soot. Eye injuries are common, as are burns and crushed fingers. There are no safety goggles, no heavy-duty gloves, just raw skill and brute force. Women, too, face their own grueling forms of labor, often confined to the domestic sphere, but no less demanding. Your day might involve hours of grinding grain by hand, using a heavy stone quern, the repetitive motion tiring your arms and back. You would spend countless hours preparing food from scratch, processing raw ingredients, kneading dough, and cooking over open fires, constantly exposed to smoke and heat. Washing clothes means hauling water from the public fountain, scrubbing garments by hand with harsh lye soap, and then hanging them to dry wherever space allows. This is not just a chore, it's a monumental physical effort that would leave you exhausted by day's end. Childcare, too, is a constant, demanding task, often alongside these other duties, with no modern conveniences like disposable diapers or formulated milk. Children are not spared from labor either. The concept of a protected childhood, where play and education are paramount, is a modern invention. From a very young age, often as young as 5 or 6, children are expected to contribute to the family's survival. Boys might apprentice with craftsmen, sweeping shops, running errands, or performing basic tasks that slowly teach them a trade. Girls would assist their mothers in domestic duties, hauling water, cleaning, preparing food, and caring for younger siblings. Their small bodies would be put to work, their education often limited to what they could glean from their elders, or a rudimentary religious schooling. The innocence of childhood, as you understand it, is a fleeting luxury, quickly replaced by the harsh realities of survival. The workday stretches from dawn until dusk, often longer, with very few breaks. There's no concept of overtime pay, no minimum wage. You work until the job is done, or until your body simply can't take any more. The sheer physical toll would be immense. Your body, accustomed to a relatively sedentary lifestyle, would quickly break down. Chronic aches and pains would become your constant companion. Early onset arthritis, back problems, joint pain, and exhaustion would be your daily reality. There's no easy access to painkillers, no physiotherapy, no sick days. If you're too sick or injured to work, you don't earn. And if you don't earn, your family starves. Accidents are a constant threat. A slip while carrying a heavy load, a misplaced hammer blow, a burn from the forge, a knife slipping while butchering meat. These minor mishaps, which in your world might result in a trip to urgent care, here could mean a debilitating injury an infection, or even death. A broken bone, if not set properly, could leave you crippled for life, rendering you unable to perform the physical labor that is your only means of survival. The risk of blindness from sparks or fumes, the loss of fingers in a workshop accident, these are not remote possibilities but ever-present dangers. The physical exhaustion would be bone deep, a constant weariness that permeates every fiber of your being. You wouldn't just be tired, you'd be utterly spent, your energy reserves depleted by the demands of your daily struggle. The satisfaction of a hard day's work would be overshadowed by the knowledge that tomorrow brings more of the same, with no hope of advancement or escape for the vast majority. Your day in the Ottoman Empire would be defined by the relentless, often brutal, physical demands placed upon your body, pushing it to its limits in a way you can barely comprehend from your modern, comfortable vantage point. As the afternoon wears on, a new, more insidious threat begins to loom large over your precarious existence: illness. In your world, a cough can be treated with over-the-counter medicine, a fever with antibiotics, and a serious injury with advanced surgical techniques and pain relief. In the Ottoman Empire, medicine is a terrifying blend of ancient wisdom, rudimentary practice, superstition, and agonizing uncertainty. You would find yourself utterly vulnerable, utterly exposed to the ravages of disease and injury, with little to no effective recourse. Imagine waking one morning with a raging fever, your body shaking uncontrollably, your head throbbing with pain. In your world, you'd call a doctor, go to an emergency room, or at least take some paracetamol. Here, the options are starkly limited. Your family might try some traditional remedies, herbal poultices, specific teas, or perhaps a visit to a local healer who relies on prayer, incantations, or charms to ward off evil spirits believed to be causing the affliction. The line between medicine and magic is blurry, often non-existent, if you're fortunate. There might be a Hakim Saum physician in your city, often educated in the classical Greek and Islamic traditions of medicine, following the humoral theory of Hippocrates and Galen. This means they believe illness is caused by an imbalance of the four bodily humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Their treatments are aimed at restoring this balance, often through practices that would horrify you. Bloodletting, for example, is a common practice. A hakim might open a vein to drain what they perceive as excess blood, or apply leeches to your skin. This, of course, weakens an already sick body, potentially leading to further infection or even death. Purging and enemas are also common, designed to rid the body of perceived toxins, further dehydrating and debilitating you. The instruments of these healers are rudimentary at best: crude scalpels, rusty saws, unsterilized bandages, and various pungent salves. The concept of germ theory is millennia away. Cleanliness in a surgical context is entirely unknown. An open wound, whether from an accident or a medical procedure, is a death sentence in waiting. Infection is almost inevitable, and without antibiotics it would spread rapidly, leading to gangrene, sepsis, and a slow, agonizing demise. A simple cut, if left untended or improperly dressed, could easily claim your life. Pain relief, as you understand it, is virtually non-existent. Opiates, derived from poppies, exist, but they are often reserved for the elite or used with extreme caution due to their addictive properties. For the common person, an injury or a chronic illness means enduring excruciating pain. Imagine a broken leg, no morphine, no general anesthetic for setting the bone. You would have to grit your teeth, bite down on a piece of leather, and endure the agonizing process of having your bone manipulated back into place, fully conscious, the pain ripping through your entire being. Amputations, when necessary, are equally brutal. Performed without anesthesia, the patient screaming in agony as a limb is sawn off, the wound then cauterized with a red-hot iron. The mere thought of such an experience would fill you with paralyzing dread. Childbirth is another terrifying gauntlet. Maternal and infant mortality rates are astronomically high. Without modern sterile techniques, pain relief, or emergency medical interventions like C-sections, countless women and newborns perish during labor. The process is often attended by midwives with traditional knowledge, but their understanding of complications is limited. A difficult birth can mean the death of both mother and child, a tragedy that is a depressingly common occurrence, a grim reality that would shadow every pregnancy. Epidemics are not occasional news reports. They are recurring nightmares. The plague, smallpox, cholera, measles, influenza, psyche, these scourges sweep through cities with terrifying regularity, decimating populations. You would live with the constant threat of these invisible killers. When an epidemic strikes, homes are quarantined, bodies are collected from the streets, and fear grips everyone. There's no vaccine, no effective treatment. Your only recourse is prayer, isolation, and desperate hope. You would watch helplessly as neighbors, friends, and family members sicken and die, their bodies racked with fever, lesions, or violent purging, all while knowing there is nothing you can do. The fear of sickness would be a pervasive underlying anxiety. Every sneeze, every cough, every ache would be scrutinized, potentially signaling the onset of a deadly illness. Your robust modern immune system, conditioned by vaccinations and a relatively clean environment, would be overwhelmed by the sheer bacterial and viral load of the Ottoman world. You would constantly feel unwell, battling minor infections, digestive issues, and the subtle weakening of your body from constant exposure to pathogens. Your life, already harsh, would be further dominated by the constant threat of pain, debilitating illness, and the very real possibility of a swift, agonizing death with no hope of a clean, sterile hospital or effective medication to save you. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the social fabric of the Ottoman Empire becomes even more apparent, revealing a rigid hierarchy and a pervasive atmosphere of both piety and suspicion. You, a product of a largely secular, individualistic society that champions equality and tolerance, would find yourself deeply uncomfortable and utterly exposed within this religiously defined and highly stratified world. Your modern ideals of personal freedom and social mobility would be an alien concept. The dominant force permeating every aspect of life is Islam. The calls to prayer, the adhan, echo 5 times a day from the minarets, a constant sonic reminder of divine authority. Observance of Islamic law, the Sharia, forms the bedrock of society. As a Muslim, you would be expected to adhere strictly to religious practices: prayer, fasting during Ramadan, charitable giving. Failure to do so, or even outwardly appearing lax, could draw the ire of neighbors, community leaders, or religious officials, leading to social ostracization, public reprimand, or worse. The community would function as a moral police, and your private life, as you understand it, would be under constant scrutiny. If you were not Muslim, your situation would be even more precarious. You would be a dhimmi, a protected but subordinate citizen. Christians and Jews were permitted to practice their religions, maintain their own courts for internal matters, and administer their own communal affairs, but with significant limitations and a constant awareness of their secondary status. You would pay a special poll tax, the jizya, marking your difference. You would be forbidden from building new churches or synagogues, or repairing old ones without special permission. Your places of worship could not be taller than mosques. You could not openly display religious symbols, ride horses, only donkeys, carry weapons, or proselytize. Your testimony in court against a Muslim would carry less weight, if any. Imagine living with this constant, subtle oppression. Every interaction would be tinged with the awareness of your otherness. You would always be expected to defer to Muslims, to step aside for them in the street, to speak respectfully. While outright persecution was not always the norm, the potential for it was ever present. A casual insult from a Muslim, a property dispute, or a false accusation could easily escalate with you, the dhimmi, at a significant disadvantage. The fear of being singled out, of being seen as challenging the established order, would be a suffocating weight. Your modern sense of entitlement to equal rights would be met with scorn, perhaps even violence, as it would be seen as an outrageous affront to divine order. Beyond religion, society is deeply hierarchical, with little room for social mobility. You are born into a certain family, a certain trade, a certain social stratum, and that is generally where you will remain. If your father is a baker, you will likely be a baker. If your family is poor, you will likely remain poor. Education, beyond basic religious instruction, is a luxury reserved for the elite or those destined for religious or administrative service. The idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps through sheer hard work and talent is largely a myth. Your destiny is largely predetermined by birth. Family honor is paramount, especially for women. Your reputation, and by extension your family's, is a fragile thing, easily shattered by rumor or perceived transgression. Women's lives are largely confined to the domestic sphere, their interactions with men outside their family carefully controlled. Unmarried women are expected to be virgins, and infidelity is a severe crime, often met with brutal punishment, sometimes even death at the hands of male family members in honor killings, which are largely tolerated. You would live under a constant cloud of restriction and expectation. Your personal choices dictated by societal norms that prioritize family and community reputation over individual desire. The gender roles are stark and unyielding. Men are the public face, the providers, the decision-makers. Women are the caretakers of the home, the mothers, the guardians of morality. There is little room for deviation. A woman attempting to enter a male-dominated profession or assert independence would face immense social pressure, ridicule, and potentially severe consequences. Your modern understanding of gender equality and personal agency for women would be utterly alien and dangerous in this context. You would be confined by these strictures, your dreams and ambitions curtailed by the expectations of your gender. Even within the Muslim community, there are layers of hierarchy. The ulama, religious scholars, the sultan's court, the military elite, merchants, craftsmen, farmers, each group has its place, its customs, and its expectations. Crossing these social boundaries, if even possible, is fraught with difficulty. The concept of class consciousness is different here. It's more about one's defined role in a divinely ordained order. You would learn your place and you would stay in it. For challenging, it would be to challenge the very foundations of the empire, inviting swift and harsh repercussions, the fear of ostracism, of social disgrace, or of falling afoul of religious or societal norms would be a constant psychological burden. You would be constantly self-censoring, carefully choosing your words and actions to fit in, to avoid drawing attention. The casual freedoms of your modern life, expressing your opinions, choosing your own path, interacting freely with anyone, would be unthinkable luxuries. You would be just one thread in a vast, intricate, and unyielding tapestry, constrained by the patterns of faith, tradition, and fear. As night begins to fall, your sense of personal autonomy would feel utterly crushed under the weight of this rigid social structure. As dusk settles over the Ottoman city, the flickering oil lamps and sparse streetlights do little to dispel the gloom, instead casting long dancing shadows that seem to distort the familiar. The sounds of the day diminish, replaced by new ones, the distant howling of dogs, the murmur of voices behind closed doors, and the unsettling scuttling of unseen creatures. You, accustomed to well-lit, relatively safe urban environments, would find the Ottoman city at night a place of profound danger. A labyrinth of threats lurking in every unlit alleyway and behind every creaking door. Fire is the first, ever-present spectre. Cities, built primarily of wood and tightly packed together with open flames used for cooking and heating, are tinderboxes. A single spark, a carelessly overturned lamp, could engulf an entire neighborhood in minutes. There are no modern fire departments, no sophisticated alarm systems. When fire breaks out, the alarm is raised by shouting and the beating of drums, and everyone scrambles to help, forming bucket brigades from nearby wells or cisterns. But often it's too late. The flames spread with terrifying speed, consuming homes, livelihoods, and lives. The glowing embers flying through the air, the crackling of burning timber, the screams of the trapped. These would be etched into your memory, a visceral understanding of the fragility of your dwelling and your very existence. You would live with a constant subconscious dread of the orange glow on the horizon. Crime, too, flourishes in the shadows. With no organized police force as you know it and limited street lighting, the night belongs to opportunistic thieves, desperate beggars, and violent gangs. Wandering the streets alone after dark is an invitation to disaster. You could be mugged, beaten, or even murdered for the few coins you carry or the clothes on your back. There's no expectation of rescue, no emergency services to call. If you are attacked, your survival depends on your own strength, luck, or the timely intervention of a passerby. The fear of being out after dark would be profound, confining you to your home once the sun sets, bolting your doors and windows with whatever meager locks you possess, knowing they offer only limited protection against a determined intruder. Beyond human threats, the city is shared with an array of wild animals. Rats are everywhere, scuttling through the refuse, carrying diseases from unseen corners. Stray dogs roam in packs, often aggressive, snarling, and fighting over scraps, posing a threat to anyone who ventures too close. There are no animal control services. These animals are a constant, visible reminder of the wildness that presses in on the edges of civilization and of the unhygienic conditions that allow them to thrive. The thought of being bitten by a rabid dog with no vaccine or treatment available would be a chilling prospect. Infrastructure, as you know it, is rudimentary. The streets are not paved, but a mix of packed earth, mud, and cobblestones that are treacherous in the dim light. There are no proper drainage systems. Rainwater would turn the streets into muddy, slippery torrents, carrying all manner of refuse with it. Open sewers are common, adding to the pervasive stench and serving as breeding grounds for disease. Walking through these streets at night would mean navigating unseen puddles of filth, stepping over discarded waste, and constantly risking a fall that could result in a painful injury, or, worse, an infection from the contaminated ground. The sheer loneliness and isolation in the darkness, despite the crowded city, can be profound. Without electric lights, without mass communication, your world shrinks to the immediate vicinity of your home. News travels slowly, often by word of mouth, distorted by rumor and speculation. The larger world feels distant, incomprehensible. You are cut off from the global information flow you take for granted, left to interpret events through a narrow, localized lens. This intellectual isolation would be as jarring as the physical discomforts. Even inside your home, the dangers persist. Carbon monoxide poisoning from poorly ventilated charcoal braziers used for heating is a silent killer. The risk of accidental burns from open flames is ever present, and the constant threat of vermin, bedbugs, lice, fleas, means a perpetual battle against itching and discomfort, as these creatures not only infest your home and clothes, but also carry diseases. Sleep itself would be a fitful, restless affair, punctuated by the sounds of the night, the discomfort of your bed, and the anxieties that haunt your waking hours. The concept of a safe, comfortable, predictable night is a luxury of your future. Here, every night is a test of survival, a period of heightened vigilance and suppressed fear. You would learn to dread the fading light, knowing it ushers in a new set of dangers that must be endured until the relative safety of dawn. Your day, now drawing to a close, would leave you utterly exhausted, physically and emotionally drained, with the grim realization that a good night's sleep is an impossible dream in this unforgiving empire. As the day begins to wane, the setting sun casts long, golden shadows across the bustling streets, but for you, The softening light offers no reprieve from the harsh realities of economic survival. In your world, you might grumble about taxes or fret over bills, but you operate within a relatively stable financial system with safety nets and opportunities for advancement. In the Ottoman Empire, the economic landscape is a perilous terrain of constant struggle, debt, and unpredictable financial ruin. Your modern understanding of money and security would crumble under the pressure of this system. Firstly, earning money is an arduous and often precarious affair. If you are a craftsman, you are part of a guild, a lonka, which regulates your trade. While guilds offer a degree of protection and camaraderie, they also impose strict rules and limit competition. Your income is dependent on demand, the availability of raw materials, and the favor of your guild masters. If you are a laborer, your wages are meager, barely enough to sustain your family. There's no consistent salary, no guaranteed paycheck. You earn what you can day by day, sometimes hour by hour, meaning a day without work is a day without food. The sheer physical effort required to earn even a pittance is immense. Imagine spending hours haggling in the market, trying to sell your meager wares, or performing backbreaking labor for a few silver akçe. Every coin earned is hard-won, a tangible representation of your sweat and toil. The value of these coins can fluctuate, making long-term financial planning nearly impossible. Inflation, often caused by the debasement of currency or economic instability, can erode your meager savings overnight, turning what little you had into worthless metal. You live with the constant anxiety that your hard-earned money might suddenly lose its purchasing power. Then come the taxes. The Ottoman state is a vast bureaucratic machine, and it needs money to function. You, the common person, are expected to contribute. There are taxes on land, on produce, on livestock, and on various goods and services. If you're a non-Muslim, remember the jizya, the poll tax, which is an additional burden. These taxes are not fixed and predictable. They can be levied at the whim of local officials or in response to the sultan's demands for new military campaigns or lavish building projects. Tax collectors are not gentle bureaucrats. They are formidable figures, often backed by armed guards, whose demands must be met. Failure to pay taxes is not just a financial inconvenience. It can have devastating consequences. Your property could be seized, your goods confiscated, or you could even be imprisoned or subjected to physical punishment. Many farmers, unable to pay their taxes after a bad harvest, are forced to abandon their lands and flee to the cities, joining the ranks of the urban poor. This cycle of debt and displacement is a common tragedy, a constant threat hanging over the lives of millions. You would live with a constant fear of the tax collector's knock, knowing that your survival hinges on your ability to meet these often unreasonable demands. Debt is another ever-present shadow. If you fall ill and cannot work, if your crop fails, or if a sudden expense arises like a dowry for a daughter or a bribe for an official, you would be forced to borrow. The interest rates are often exorbitant, leading to a vicious cycle that is almost impossible to escape. Many people fall into permanent debt, essentially becoming indentured servants to their creditors, forced to work off their obligations with little hope of ever regaining financial independence. Debt slavery, in all but name, is a grim reality, and it's a fate that could befall you or your family at any moment. There are no social safety nets as you know them. No unemployment benefits, no healthcare system, no pensions. If you become too old, too sick, or too injured to work, you become a burden on your family, or, if you have no family, you are left to beg on the streets. Beggars are a common sight in the Ottoman cities, a stark reminder of the harsh consequences of misfortune. Your modern notion of a dignified retirement or state support for the vulnerable would be a cruel fantasy here. Even saving money is fraught with risk. Banks, as you understand them, don't exist in the modern sense. You might entrust your coins to a trusted merchant or bury them in your home, but both methods carry significant risks of theft or loss. Hoarding wealth attracts unwanted attention, making you a target for criminals or even opportunistic officials looking for a bribe. There is no secure, interest-earning place for your money to grow. The daily struggle for economic survival is not just about making ends meet. It's about navigating a world where prosperity is fragile, debt is a trap, and the state's demands are absolute. The weight of financial insecurity, the constant worry about how to feed your family, pay your taxes, and avoid falling into debt would be an exhausting mental burden. Your modern comfort, your ability to plan for the future, your sense of financial autonomy, all would be utterly shattered. As the night deepens, you'd lie awake, not dreaming of success, but simply praying for another day of meager survival. As the stars begin to emerge in the inky blackness of the Ottoman night sky, your mind might wander to the passage of time, to the cycles of life and death. You, with your expectation of a long, relatively healthy life stretching into old age, would be confronted by the brutal reality of a short, precarious existence in the Ottoman Empire. From the moment of birth to the final breath, life is a constant battle, and the Grim Reaper is a far more frequent visitor than in your world. Let's begin at the very beginning. Childhood, as you understand it, is a luxury for the privileged few. Infant mortality rates are astronomically high. 1 in 3, perhaps even 1 in 2 children would not survive past their 5th birthday. Diseases like smallpox, measles, diphtheria, and whooping cough, which are easily preventable or treatable in your era, are lethal killers here. A child's cry is often followed by a mother's silent tears. Every new birth is met with both joy and a profound underlying fear. Will this one survive? You would experience the heartbreak of losing siblings, cousins, and your own children with a horrifying regularity that would scar your soul. The grief would be immense, but also paradoxically normalized, a common thread woven into the fabric of life. If you survive infancy and early childhood, you quickly transition from being a child to a miniature adult. As we touched on earlier, children are expected to contribute to the household economy from a young age. There is little time for play, less for formal education beyond basic religious schooling. The innocence and carefree spirit you associate with childhood are quickly stripped away, replaced by the grim realities of labor and responsibility. Your hands, instead of holding toys, would be learning a trade, grinding grain, or fetching water. Your body, still growing, would be put to work, often performing tasks too strenuous for its developing frame, leading to chronic aches, injuries, and deformities that would plague you for life. Marriage, for both men and women, often occurs at a young age. Girls might be married in their early to mid-teens, sometimes even younger, their fates decided by their families based on economic necessity, social standing, or alliances. Love, as the primary basis for marriage, is a modern concept. Marriage is an economic and social contract, a means of securing family lines and providing for the future. You would likely have little to no say in who your spouse is, submitting to the decisions of your parents or guardians. The pressures of childbearing would begin almost immediately for women, further taxing bodies already weakened by malnutrition and hard labor, contributing to the high maternal mortality rates. Adulthood, for those who reach it, is a period of relentless toil. The physical demands of labor, the constant threat of disease, the economic insecurity, and the psychological burden of living under arbitrary power would wear you down relentlessly. Your body, aged prematurely by hardship, would begin to show the signs of wear and tear far earlier than in your world. Your teeth would be rotting or missing, your hair thin and grey, your skin weathered and deeply lined by your 30s or 40s. You would look and feel significantly older than your chronological age. Old age, if you were fortunate enough to reach it, would not be a time of comfortable retirement. Instead, it would be a period of increasing vulnerability and dependence. Without the ability to work, you would rely entirely on your children or extended family for support. If you had no children, or if your children were too poor themselves to care for you, your fate would be a grim one, begging, starvation, or a slow decline into destitution. The respect accorded to elders is real, but it doesn't always translate into guaranteed physical security or comfort. Death is a constant companion, not a distant abstraction. You would witness it frequently, intimately. Family members succumbing to fever, neighbors dying in childbirth, friends falling victim to epidemics. The rituals of death are immediate and public, with bodies often buried quickly in simple shrouds, the mourning raw and visceral. There's no hospital bed, no peaceful passing in a sterile environment. Death is often agonizing, public, and swift. You would live with an acute awareness of your own mortality, knowing that your life could be extinguished at any moment by disease, accident, violence, or even just the slow, inevitable grinding down of your body by hardship. The concept of quality of life, as you know it, filled with leisure, entertainment, personal pursuits and comfort, would be utterly alien. Your life would be defined by a ceaseless struggle for survival, punctuated by moments of joy that are often intertwined with profound suffering. Every day lived would be a victory against overwhelming odds, a testament to resilience, but also a constant reminder of the fragility of your existence. Your short, hard life in the Ottoman Empire would be a stark, brutal contrast to the extended, cushioned lifespan you take for granted in your modern world. Segment 10. Farewell to Empire. A modern reflection as the Ottoman night finally gives way to the first hints of dawn, painting the eastern sky with a soft, ethereal glow. You find yourself slowly, gently pulled back from the visceral experience of the empire. The oppressive smells begin to recede, the chaotic sounds soften, and the aches and pains of your borrowed body start to fade. You blink, and suddenly you are back in your own time, in your own comfortable space, the harsh realities of the past dissolving like a fading dream. But the lingering echo of that day in the Ottoman Empire stays with you. You can almost still feel the rough fabric of the clothes, the grittiness of the earth floor, the gnawing hunger in your stomach. You recall the stench of the streets, the fear in the eyes of the common people, the chilling, arbitrary nature of justice, and the constant, crushing burden of labor. You remember the terror of disease with no cure, the rigid social order that confined you, the dangers lurking in the darkness, and the unrelenting struggle for every single coin. You remember the heartbreak of high infant mortality and the short, brutal arc of life itself. This journey wasn't about romantic tales of sultans and grand viziers, but about the unvarnished truth of survival for the vast majority of people who lived and died in that magnificent yet brutal empire. It was a world where every single day was a challenge, where every breath was a small victory against overwhelming odds. The luxuries you take for granted, clean water, sanitation, readily available food, privacy, personal space, effective medicine, legal rights, social mobility, and a peaceful night's sleep were unimaginable dreams for most. Think about the simple act of turning on a light switch or drawing a glass of clean water from the tap. Consider the comfort of your bed, the warmth of your home, the choices you have in what you eat, what you wear, and how you spend your time. Reflect on the absence of fear that permeates your daily life, the expectation of justice, the belief in your own agency. These aren't just conveniences. They are profound freedoms and protections that have been painstakingly built over centuries, often on the very foundations of the suffering you just experienced. So, as you settle back into the quiet comfort of your own home, let this journey be a reminder. A reminder not to romanticize the past, but to understand its true, gritty nature. A reminder to appreciate the incredible progress humanity has made, often forgotten in the rush of modern life. And perhaps most importantly, a reminder of gratitude. Gratitude for the simple, profound comforts that make your existence so vastly different from that of someone trying to survive a single day in the mighty, formidable, and utterly unforgiving Ottoman Empire. Sleep well, my friend, and carry this understanding with you into the comfort of your modern dawn.